Thank you, Alexandra, and thank you, everybody. Thank you to the committee to have invited me for this talk. So, in spring 2020, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, a general lockdown paralyzed most sectors in German public life, including museums, and Germanisches Nationalmuseum in Nürnberg, where I'm working, was not an exception. Virtually overnight, you find yourself with a huge museum space of around 20,000 square meters of exhibition and around 25,000 objects exposed. Doors closed, everything perfectly secured, and without a single visitor. Many people were in home office for the first time of their life. What to do now? The story starts here, but first let me give a brief introduction about what we are. Germanisches Nationalmuseum is the largest museum for the cultural history of the German-speaking lands. It was founded in 1852 by the nobleman Hans Freiherr von und zu Aufseß. He wanted to create a place of identification for a community that was about to be built, the so-called German nation. At that time, Germany was a territory composed of hundreds of independent cities and small states, their common features being the German language. Today, the museum holds about 1.35 million objects from 600,000 before our time until the present. The collections cover virtually all items of culture: art, artistic craftwork, clothing, musical instruments, weapons, scientific instruments, craft guilds, and many more. So now let's continue our story. The question has been what to do when all this is closed to the public. You can do what you do on Mondays, the weekly closure day, but on a larger scale. Repairing, cleaning showcases, work like this. And the staff that was still present started. But one day, Mark Fichtner, he's a member of CIDOC, the head of our IT department, came into my office and asked, "Could you please come and have a look?" I supposed he wanted me in my function as program director of the research services and followed him. But I was wrong, not in following him, but my supposition. Together with the museum guards and some other colleagues, he wanted to digitize the archaeological exhibition. And what they asked for was my advice as head of the museum's photo department, though I'm not a photographer. In brief, the question for just some technical advice turned out into hundreds of hours of organizing, investing, and controlling, and teaching. But it was worth the effort, and be it only for our guards who came forward as volunteers to learn a new job that had nothing to do with physical visitors. So, in what did this project of digitizing differ from what we are normally doing? In normal times, photos are taken by our two professional photographers in our professional photo studio. Two scan operators make scans of prints, drawings, and slides on dedicated scanners, as other people from the library and the coins and medals department and from the archives do on their special devices. The aim of all these colleagues is to produce state-of-the-art publishable images. This takes particular time for three-dimensional objects. Photographing and scanning all of our assets in this high-end environment would take, I have calculated, at least 80 to 100 years. No one wants to wait for such a long time to see the objects on the web. And this is what we did. I will now turn my screen sharing on. So can you see it? Yes, I think. To speed up things, we decided to renounce to this very high quality and to search for ways to do the job with non-professional staff. Our aims were to produce photos that show the most characteristic features of very diverse objects, but without the claim to get publishable, aesthetically appealing images. Second, to show which objects we have, not how pretty they are or how good are our photographers. Third, to develop workflows as fast and as reliable as possible. Four, to have at least basic metadata for the objects. 5, to have the images and the data sets immediately out on the web. 6, to keep order. And 7th and last but not least, to keep the working environment pandemic safe. The technical means that have been chosen were smartphones. A good choice, if you believe in advertising noise. And in fact, with a modern smartphone, everybody can make quite impressive photos without any more knowledge. Here is the proof. Look at the clouds and look at the colors. So the first thing I said was, let us drop the smartphones, organize good cameras and lights, and we will see what we can do. The equipment has been found very quickly. Several workshops in our restoration department lent their camera and lights for this undertaking. But why did I claim this material? And why do professional photographers spend 50,000 euros or more for a mid-format camera and a high-end flashlight equipment, if they can get impressive photos from a smartphone for some €100 or even less? It is because even the most sophisticated algorithm in modern smartphones can't handle simple physical parameters as light, distortion, and faithful color rendering, as soon as you go inside and take images of museum objects. What counts in a museum is not impressiveness, but faithfulness. And here is what we developed to enable people who never had touched before to studio photography in order to take workable object photos. The most important issue we had to resolve for this was light. To the left, this is a photo of one of the oldest clarinets in existence, and it is in our museum. The exposure and the volume rendering are perfect, and every detail is clearly visible. The setup to the right gives an impression of the effort and the time and the money that had to be invested. We could, by the way, only do it as a part of serial digitization during the MIMO project for the world's largest database of historical musical instruments. Here are two photos. The left one, the blue can, made with directed or hard light, and the right with undirected or soft light. It is immediately visible that the soft light gives the more convincing results, even if volume rendering is not as good as in our professional example before. In our non-expert Corona setting, we opted thus for a simple soft light scene, just using a symmetrical setup in two variations. The first was the more common one, with two flashes provided with umbrellas, one of several possible means for the diffusion of light, so to create soft light. If you want to do this professionally, you might wish to change parameters as light balance or slightly change the angles from object to object to get the best look and feel. However, we devised an average symmetrical setting as here that gave average good results, no matter what the property of the object was. Here are two example photos. They are perfectly workable, but professional photographers will easily see what could have been done better through an individual treatment, especially of the rather large fork on the right side. And for the can on the left side, you can see that the volume rendering is much less obvious as for the clarinet I showed before. An even softer light you get in using a light box. It is made of translucent fabric and is almost all around the object. For a seamless background, we fixed a sheet of background paper with magnets to build an infinity cove, so a curved surface. Here are examples. This very soft light is rendering even less volume, but it is quite easy to handle for reflecting objects and glass. When I showed these two photos to one of our professional photographers, she said that the left one could be published. It was good. But for the right one, she drew my attention to the dark area in the upper middle, which is nothing else than a reflection of the camera tripod. One never stops learning, and I appreciate professional photographers. The mobile digitization team, as we call them, liked the light boxes so much that I had to buy two others. And they do everything that can be done with them. They even replaced this repro stand we initially had it started with for small objects, and which allowed for removing the background by balanced background lighting. You can see it's isolated to the right. And here you see how they did. This was much facilitated by a lighting crane, the black thing, close to the tent, that we transformed into a camera stand. This was one of the many tricks we had to invent to make workflows as smooth as possible. And now here's a last trick before I go on. How to photograph dishes in a light box without having to mount dishes, but simply laying them on the ground and photographing from the top. Besides the direction and quality of the light and solutions how to present an object to the camera, one crucial issue is color management. The aim of color management is to render the original colors of the objects in every picture, in every medium, be it printed or shown on screen. If one just wants nice photos, one can rely on his modern smartphone. But if one wants reliable and faithful photos, color management can become highly complicated. So we tried a simplified way in photographing the neutral grays in this handy color reference on the left, and then programming it as white balance into the camera. Then we always photograph the color reference, which you see on the right, together with the object, to show how far we might be from the true color in each case. This avoided lengthy post-processing and gave quite acceptable results. However, sometimes things went not as we wanted. As you may see on the left photo, with a slight color cast on the white background, or you don't see because of missing color management in this pipeline. Or photos might have been too dark or not perfectly framed, as you can see, and so on and so on. To show that the photos made by the mobile digitization unit are not considered to be published in print and are not made by our master photographers, they bear a watermark, classifying them as working photos. However, many photos have a publishable quality nevertheless, and we have kept copies without the watermark, just in case. So, after a lot of technical photo subjects, let's come now to the workflows including the gathering of the metadata. In order to go fast with photographing, we had teams of 2 people per photo unit. One of them handled the objects. This was always a trained person, be it a reserve manager, a conservator, or also a curator. Her duty was to position the objects in following the commands of the photographer who observed the computer screen of the photo unit. The other person in the team was one of our guards who received training on the fly for remote photography and processing. While an object was removed and another one positioned, she processed the photos and prepared for the next one. By the way, in normal times we would have distributed the roles just like this, but apart from speed, this allowed for very comfortable security distances in pandemic times, as you can see here. So the photographer controlled the focus and the field of view and then triggered the camera with the flashes. After a control of the image that had been transferred to the computer, she triggered the processing of RAW format to TIFF format and shifted the files into dedicated folders on our servers. This was possible because our IT department equipped all exhibition spaces with a temporary high-speed wireless LAN. And the photographing person entered some commands into a specially programmed script that, let me see, no, it's not that this, first created hierarchical folders on the museum server according to the room and showcase numbers. Second, created master files in TIFF format for reference and saved them. Third, created JPEG derivatives with the watermark for working photos and saved them. Fourth, and deported them into our image management system. The image management system is directly linked.
Sorry to interrupt you. Just 2 minutes warning for the end of your presentation. Okay.
Okay. I jump to resume. So to see this metadata capture was made by trained guards with in typing them in. And here are the results in brief. So what is for me most important is the guards had a job they loved to do, that we made more than 6,000 3D objects in 8 months. And we will, for the future, we will use this because we have to move 30,000 objects from 2 exhibition spaces in a new reserve for refurbishing the buildings, and we will digitize them with our mobile digitization unit. So thank you for your attention. If there are questions, they will be welcomed. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. I guess I have my video on. Okay. Thank you all for your presentations. I have some of mine, but I will start just for some that arrived at my email from the audience. One of the questions is about if we are going to share the presentations and the contacts of the speakers, and I think we will have that information at the end. Normally we publish that information at the CIDOC website, so have a look on it. You will receive some information from the CIDOC 2020 organization about that specific issues. I have 2 questions. One is for Peter Fornaro, and the question is from João Machado. and I will read the question. I guess it's better. Whose technology allows to access and align interaction of RTI images? Is it some kind of specific plugin, or exists some kind of common viewers like Sketchfab or for 3D objects? Another question is if you think and reached any conclusions about how to documentation, metadata and archive of the RTI collection matrix images, because like photography surveys, obviously we are talking about heavy information. So Peter, do you want to reply to this one?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, very good. I would like to respond to the first question. What we use is as standardized viewer as possible. And what we did is we integrated a small WebGL plugin. WebGL is a standard component which is HTML5 compliant and which is supported by most mobile devices, tablets, phones, as well as computer browsers. And this has the big advantage that we can make the RTI content visible actually in each and every already existing web project. Because we learned that for many museums, it is quite a challenge to integrate modern stuff because they are somehow bound to the technology which is sold by the vendors of software environments which they are using, and often they are not very flexible. And so with this approach, we have the chance to really offer something which can be used by all. And the second question, I'm not sure whether I got it right, about documentation, if I'm right, and metadata standards for RTI. I think that's quite a challenge. I see there that it needs further community building. We have seen that in certain areas like numismatic already exist quite comprehensive metadata schemas for describing those specific objects, even illumination attributes. But I believe it is absolutely necessary to work in work groups together to find new metadata standards and attributes which address exactly those points. Just one example, I mean, if you take RTI or 3D, you can make something visible in the original, which you can then annotate, but it actually requires for another person to have exactly the same viewing settings so that you can see specific subjects or features of the object which are described. And so it means it needs quite comprehensive scene meta information, which describe the camera position, light position, and all that. And this is required. It is not existing in a proper standard, I would say. And so there is quite a lot of work to do, but I think it's important. We are going clearly into a world of participation and interaction.
Thank you, Peter. I guess I will send you the contacts from João and from the people that are asking questions so that you can keep in touch. We have also another question from Dina. I'm sorry, I will not say the second name. Sorry for that. From the Geneva Museum from Switzerland, because it is difficult for me the pronunciation in German. The question is for Frank P Bär. She's asking, do you also take pictures of flat objects like documents, passports, or textiles, or do you scan them, Frank?
Yeah, thank you for the question. No, we do only the photographing. We do only from for 3D objects. Sorry, my other glasses. Because we have recently this year we had acquired a large scanner, and so all flat objects go on this large scale high-end scanner. But before they have been photographed, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. I was following your presentation very enthusiastically because I remember myself of the times when I was working at the museum and we started to build some homemade um, studios for taking pictures. Back then we didn't have the money to do it like professionally, so we need to go like you did in trying to invent our little studios. I don't have. Let me just check here because I think I got all the questions from the floor. I don't know if I haven't if I have some of them at the junk, but I guess not, because yesterday someone told me that please check your junk because some of the messages enter there. But um, I have written here some questions, remarks, and one of them it's for Rob, and it is somehow a curiosity from my side in a system like you have built for the Flemish art collection. What happens when? Sorry, are you listening to me?
Yeah.
I guess so. So, what happens when one of your one of your platform changes or one of your software needs to have a change? Do you have a maintenance or a plan for that kind of situation, or you build every single connection between them, predicting that kind of changes?
Yeah, the initial design for the platform was that every single component can be. Can you hear me?
No. Oh, sorry. It was mine.
Okay, yeah. So the initial design for our infrastructure was that every single component is interchangeable with any other component doing the same sort of task. So yeah, the principle is that you can replace for example, the data hub with any other metadata storage system, or the IIIF components with any other IIIF components without affecting any other part of the system. So yeah, if anything needs to be updated or changed, in practice, we should be able to just take that existing component out, put the new component in its place, and carry on without problems.
Okay. So it's quite easy to do it. You don't have to plan in advance. Not many things.
There may be some planning for specific mappings, for example, to specific formats. For example, the presentation platform requires Apache Solr documents. If you replace that in the future with a different system, then it's going to be a different format to map to. But yeah,
okay.
In theory, it's not too impossible.
Yeah. Rob, I have thank you very much. I have a question also for Kelly. And the question is about was reading other notes. It's about how to document the kind of work that you shared with us, and what are difficult to document and to capture metadata for an installation that it is an object, and we can capture the measurements and a lot of physical details about that object. But an installation is, as you said, also an idea, and document an idea, it's difficult. Do you agree? Kali, I'm sorry, Kali isn't with us. I guess not, sorry. So I will pass to another question that I have here. Sorry for that. One other question that I have is for Frank van Ogel, and it's about the specificity that you said that there are at Germany, you are having a lot of specific portals like graphic portal and the other three that you talked to us, that you and that spread of specific portals, it's quite it's they are, I guess they are using the same linked open data repositories. So how it is possible to maintain a structure like that, and how that specific portals work within all the different areas of data that is that is available in Germany.
Okay, interesting question. Thank you for that. I think we have to recognize that we have different levels. We have of showing cultural heritage objects. For example, in Europeana and in these great portals, national or from the federal sides, we bring together information of different cultural heritage institutions. So we can harmonize the data down to a special, to some common level, and then we have to stop. But if you preparing a portal for numismatics or even for prints, you can try to use the deepness of the documentation that you have in your systems, hopefully. And what I can see in the last years is a beginning of change in the work of documentation. Not even to create your own vocabularies of the museum. Also have a look what kind of vocabularies are usable for you as. Is, for example, is the German authority files usable, or is there a special vocabulary of the numismatic collections? And the second part, some special collections started to open their vocabularies. The numismatics are one good example, because this is a work together of the vocabulary of the numismatic collections of the whole world to publish their vocabulary. And now you can start to link the data with your vocabulary and enrich these portals. So you have many points of contact and build relations between the different collections, and so it could work. And the other point is the deepness of information that you can present for this special kind of object that you want to present for prints or for cultural heritage objects from the techniques area. They need another. If you want to specialize, for example, on the area of clocks collection, you can have more deepness in the data, that you may be able to build references between the different collections in the museum.
Okay, thank you a lot, Frank, for your remarks. I have also a question that I guess it is related with the question that João asked to Peter, and it's about the use of RTI images for conservation. Do you have a lot of questions or a lot of requests for using that kind of image to conservation purposes or restoration purposes?
Yes, absolutely. We are right now working in a larger project together with different museums, and there are just advantages, as we were told. One is it is very much based on photography, so it's a process which can be more or less easily integrated in existing workflows in museums. And the other big advantage is it has really the visual quality of photography. And if you compare high resolution RTIs, for example, with 3D models from Sketchfab, it is completely different approach. One, the RTI approach is more trying to show specific small details, granularity of materials, fingerprint traces on archaeological objects, whereas a 3D model is more for the shape and of course for hidden parts, which the downside of an object. And in one of the next research projects, we clearly see that we have to focus in bringing those two together. So having 3D objects, but with very high quality textures, which are based on RTI to really allow both. So having shapes that you can rotate, but you can zoom in and you have fully high resolution photography quality.
Okay.
And the same is true for restoration. I mean, if there are different things we learned, one is the effort which has to be done for state or condition reports in art renting or lending to other museums is quite impressive. And if you can automate stuff like this and capture actually stuff which you don't even know that you will have to look for, it is quite an advantage, I think.
Thank you, Peter, for your answer. So we are a little bit late on our schedule. I would like to thank you all, Frank, Rob, Louisa, Peter, and everyone that was with us accompanying this session 11. I want to invite you to continue to follow our sessions at CIDOC, and thank you a lot to make my job easy here at session 11. So nice to meet you, and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks a lot.